Hello, friends. Hello. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for joining. We are going to be doing a little personal finance Q&A 101. But I'm going to give everybody a quick second to join because I know it's 6:01. So I'm going to give everybody a little bit more time. But then we are going to be answering all of your personal finance questions. But till then, I am putting stuff on my skin to help my eczema. But I would love to know, how is everybody's day going? Just before we get started, if we want to ask questions, please put them in the question box, and then I'll be able to see which questions get the most votes, and that way we can answer the most pressing questions ASAP. But thank you guys so much for spending a little time with me. I'm trying to make sure that all of my lives are set up well. I've got Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, so I'll be answering questions from all over. Amazing. Okay, so why don't we start the questions? Would love more content on Vanguard and investing. Oh, I guess that's not a question, sorry. But my day's going well. Yes, please ask questions in the chat. Okay, let's answer the very first question. What stocks to invest in? You guys, I'm gonna be so real with you. If I had the perfect idea of what stocks to invest in, I would not be here doing this live. I would not be making content. I wouldn't be working. I would be living in Bora Bora and you would never hear from me again. Because people always try to cherry pick the perfect stock, and it is in fact very, very hard to do. I actually talk a lot about this in my book, Rich AF. You can get a copy at richaf.me, or you can just type, if you're on Instagram, you can type Rich AF in the chat and I can send you a DM for a link to get a copy. There's hardcovers, ebooks, audiobooks, international versions, but even if you can't see it, or sorry, someone said it was paused. Even if you can't afford to get a copy of the book, please go to your library, get on the wait list, ask them to buy more copies so that you can read it for free. I'm a huge believer that this knowledge should be public information. I frankly wish I didn't have to write this book and that we just taught about it in public schools, but we don't. So I'm hoping that this book can really help everybody out. When it comes to cherry picking stocks, people always want to be like, oh, I know what's coming. Like, this person is a really good stock picker. I'm telling you, when I worked on Wall Street, it is not easy to cherry pick stocks. There would be hedge fund analysts who would try to do it. They would have billions of dollars of technology at their fingertips. They would have, multiple interns doing all of the little grunt work to make it happen. But it's really, really hard to do right. And that's why you see a lot of hedge funds not seeing really great results year after year. Maybe they have a standout year or whatever, but it's really hard to get right. So what I would say is go ahead and invest in funds. Think about it like a basket of Halloween candy. If you invest in any one stock, it's like going to the store and buying a bag of Kit Kats. If you got another stock, it's going to the store and getting a thing of Snickers, a thing of Skittles, whatever. Imagine it's Halloween and this year, nobody likes Kit Kats. Your house is getting egged. However, if you buy a fund, a basket of investments, it's essentially like getting a Halloween grab bag. So now your bag has Kit Kats and Snickers and Milky Ways and Crunch Bars and even the gross almond joys that some people out there really like. But you know what? Your house is not going to get egged because there is something in there for everybody. And the two types of most popular funds are going to be ETFs and mutual funds. I'll tell you the difference really quick. ETFs trade all day. They typically have lower minimum buy-ins, and they're liquid. They trade just like a normal stock would. Mutual funds are priced once a day, and there's essentially a person at a desk who is, rebalancing them and switching things in and out. Typically, in most cases, not always, mutual funds are more active and ETFs are more passive. They just track an index. And oftentimes, the fees on mutual funds are a little bit higher. However, both are great options. Mutual funds typically require a minimum buy-in of, in some cases, $1,000, $3,000. In some cases, there is no minimum, but I would say if you are a beginner, start with some ETFs that track basic indices. But then there are some really great mutual funds out there, such as target date retirement funds, which are essentially balanced based on your age and how close you are to retirement. So please check it out. I talk all about it in chapter 5, which is the investing chapter of my book. I really do break it down into super duper simple steps. And here, let me just show you a quick graphic. Basically, I break out where you invest, what account you want to open up, and for what reason, whether it's retirement, for your kids, for, general investing, if it's through your employer. But then at the bottom, I give you a pyramid. Investments that are super high risk, high reward are up at the top. Investments at the bottom are low risk, but also low reward. And investing in funds is kind of somewhere in the middle. So this is a great resource if you want to check it out. Again, it's on sale right now on Amazon. You can just Google Rich AF, richaf.me to get a copy, and super easy to understand. And otherwise, you can just snag a copy from your library whenever you get off the wait list. Okay, let's pivot because that question came from Instagram. I want to answer a question from YouTube. Ooh, somebody asked, should you buy or rent a home? Okay, this is the age-old question. And what's really important is to acknowledge where you currently live, geographically speaking, but also to acknowledge what situation you are in financially. One resource that I really love is the New York Times rent versus buy calculator. Just make a little mental note of that. It's called the New York Times rent versus buy calculator. You can just Google it. And what you do is you go into this little page that they have. You put in how much you're currently spending on rent, what a home that you would want to actually live in would cost. So like you're not getting the shittiest home, but you're not getting the $34 million home. And then you also fill out like what would a mortgage rate likely look like for you depending on your credit score, and what are your annual budgets for maintenance, all these other things. So the New York Times the New York Times rent versus buy calculator is a great way to figure out whether one makes more sense than the other. And once you fill out all of your personal details, it will bring out at the bottom, like you would save XYZ number of dollars over the next 10 years if you did renting or buying versus the other. So that'll be a much better sense of me being able to sit versus me sitting here and being like, you should rent, you should buy. Like, I don't know you. I don't know your exact personal situation. I don't know exactly how many dollars you have in the bank, but through this, page, you're going to be able to figure that out. Okie dokie. Let's check out TikTok, see what questions I have. Okay, how does your book stand out from other financial books? So I'll be honest. I feel like in my parents' generation, there were some incredible financial literacy books. Anything from The Richest Man in Babylon, The Psychology of Money, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. All of those were great. But they didn't address the fact that we are now living in a post-pandemic society, that the student loan crisis has ballooned. The fact of the matter is it is now cheaper to rent than buy in 70% of all markets. And the fact that, we just aren't keeping up when it comes to what we're earning versus cost of living. This book addresses how to actually build your wealth and feel confident about your money, taking all of that into account, and how to actually navigate your finances when maybe you are living paycheck to paycheck. Maybe you are fresh out of school, or maybe you're in your 40s or 50s and feel really behind. This is a way to really navigate that. My hope is that you're able to read this book from page 1 to the very last page, and then feel much more confident and capable in your financial journey, because the first half of the book, let me show ya, is actually, it says, you work hard for the money, because it covers all of the things that you need to know right now. So why the economy is kind of fucked. That's in there. Second, I know my worth. I think it's a little out of place. It almost feels, people always tell me it feels out of place to have career stuff first. But I think that if you do not actually maximize your income by asking for a raise, getting a promotion, getting a better job, like the other stuff is a lot harder to do. It's so much easier if you actually have more money and make more money. So we're doing that first. Then we go into the budgeting piece. So this is how to build a budget that you like don't want to like hate your life, because this is a budget that will actually allow you to have all of those little treats, all of those things you want, get that designer bag at the end of the year. This is how you budget. And then the second half of the book, which is frankly, I think even more important, and what people tell me is the most valuable half, is it says, instead of you working hard for your money, it's making your money work hard for you. This is how you are able to make money while doing the absolute bare minimum. So the first chapter in this section is I take care of future me. So this is all about saving, how to supercharge your saving, how to make sure that you are getting the most interest possible, all of that. And then the second chapter in this section of the book is I wasn't born rich, but my kids will be. The investing section. This is so important, because this is what everybody tells me is the most valuable chapter. It's certainly the longest one. It's the one that took me the longest to write, but it has a ton of stuff about investing no matter who you are. And this is what people tell me is like the most valuable page, is I break down the exact order your investing should take place and in what accounts based on your tax situation. And this is going to help you get the most out of the tax benefits. So this is really helpful. And then the last chapter is about financial domination. It is about taxes, debt, talking to family about money, friends, things like that, so that, you realize that money is not just true, false, fact, fiction. It's emotional, and you're allowed to feel that way, and it helps you navigate finances in your actual life. But for people asking, it's called Rich AF. You can snag a copy at richaf.me. Let me actually put it in the chat. Oh, yes. Okay. My assistant's like literally whispering to me in my ear. If you're on Instagram, you can actually comment Rich AF and we can send you a link. Yes, I was the one who voiced the audiobook, which is absolutely terrifying. But I do think that was really, really helpful, and I do voices. So you can snag a copy, hardcover, ebook, audiobook. There is an international edition that caters to English-speaking international countries, so the UK, the Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and India. But you can grab a copy. But yeah, just go to richaf.me, or if you're on Instagram, just comment richaf. Amazing. And there's also signed copies. Ooh, sorry, I just froze on TikTok because I touched my phone. There's also signed copies at richaf.me. But I want to take another question. What did I study to get where I am right now? Ooh, okay, here's a really helpful tip. You can study whatever you want, but if you are at a point, or you have a kid, or they're in college, or they're thinking about what they want to study, tell them to go to bls.gov and look through the Occupational Handbook A through Z. Reason being, there is a through Z chart, everything from accountant to zookeeper, A through Z, and it will tell you how much that job pays and what you need to do to actually get that job. So whether it's, I guess it's, let me think, what was the different listings? Okay, so they have either certifications, degrees, or tests. So like I had to get a series exam to be a Wall Street trader. It does all of those, but also what it does is it breaks out that job by geography. So if you live in an urban area, suburban area, rural area, it'll tell you what you're likely to make in all of those areas. And on top of that, what you can do is filter by what sector you'd be working in. So say you are an accountant or a marketing person or a salesperson for a tech company or a healthcare company, or you work for the government, you're in a nonprofit, whatever. You are going to be able to see what that job pays. The reason I bring that up instead of kind of directly answering the question of what I majored in and what I studied, it's because what I majored in and studied has absolutely nothing to do with what I do now. I double majored in environmental studies and public policy. I thought it was really interesting, like how public policy dictated what people were doing every single day in their lives and how it also impacted, local economies. But I also I don't know, for a while thought I was I was gonna save the environment. Like I was gonna work at a green energy company and do something cool. And I thought those were really interesting topics. And for me, that meant focusing on that in college. But I ended up becoming a Wall Street trader who who traded industrials, materials, and energy, because that's the background I had. But it's not like Chicago had a finance major. I wasn't even an economics major. But you can do whatever you want, whatever major. Just make sure that based on what you major in and what your internships are in, you are able to get a job that provides you the lifestyle that you want. Because another hobby of mine is having a roof over my head and eating food at the same time. And God forbid I want to go out and see my friends and get my nails done. I know a lot of people who want to save the world and want to do cool stuff, but they also want to drive a Lambo. And it's you don't get to do those two things at the same time, unfortunately. I certainly think our society values certain occupations less than they should. I think teachers should be paid more. I think, sports players should probably be paid a little less. But I do think it's really important for us to know what those future jobs that we have access to are going to pay, because, it's a passion to have a job, but it's also a passion to be able to pay your bills. But for everybody asking, the website is called bls.gov, but you're going to be looking for something called the Occupational Handbook, A through Z. So if you just want to Google bls.gov in Google and then search Occupational Handbook, A through Z, that's where you're going to be able to find it. Grace, can you help me really quick? How do I pin richaf.me on this one? Sorry, guys, a little bit of a technical situation. Just want to make sure that everybody can see the link, because I'm getting some folks who are asking, and I don't want to keep... Oh, no! I put the brat filter over. How do I take it off? Okay, sorry. You guys, I am unfortunately very tech unsavvy. Okay, this guy is really annoying on TikTok. I'm just going to block him. Sorry, guys. I don't like it when people spam my lives. I work very hard. I am very busy. I take an hour out of my day to answer questions. I don't want people to just spam. You guys deserve to be able to ask me questions, and I deserve to be able to see them, especially because I'm already technologically unsavvy as it is. Okay. Somebody asked, what professional should I look for that can help me determine what I should do with 3 different 401ks and a Roth and a traditional IRA? I do not have any type of financial persona in my life. Okay, amazing. I actually talk about this in my book. Oh my God, sorry guys. How do I block this person too? This is so annoying. Okay, I think it should be fine. Basically, what I would say in my book, I always talk about building your money team, because it's really hard to manage all of it on your own sometimes, and you may want to get some help. What I don't recommend is most people immediately, they're like, I need a financial advisor. I don't think you do. Most financial advisors are people who will take a commission out of the investments that they're helping you with. And the issue with that is, over the course of your lifetime, their fee, anywhere between 1 to 1.25%, could amount to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I don't think most people can afford to be giving up that much in fees. Instead, what I always say is I do recommend everybody talk to a financial planner. A financial planner is someone who will likely charge you a flat rate fee, so you just pay a fee and that's it. Or you can bank at certain banks and they will actually do it for you for free. Those are great options, but they are teams that will help you be able to say, hey, this is what you make, this is how much you have, this is when you want to retire, you want to buy a home, when? You want to have kids, when? And that's going to be able to help you figure out what exactly you should be doing with all of those accounts. Personally, I say when you leave a 401k at your old place, you are going to forget it. You are going to get charged fees. I always say roll it and have it at an IRA that is only tied to you. Okie dokie. Are there tax tips in your book? Yes, there are. There are tons of tax tips in my book, Rich AF. You can snag a copy at richaf.me or just Google it, Rich AF. It's the first thing that'll come up. And it is truly my favorite chapter, though everybody tells me their favorite's chapter 5, but I talk about taxes in my financial domination chapter. Let me show you guys the image. It's so fun because I feel like I'm such a visual learner. I break down how taxes work in this book. In fairness, I came up with this and I doodled it on like a pen and paper, and then an actual designer put this together. But I think taxes are something that's really, really confusing for people. So I break down exactly how they work. And in the investing chapter, as well as the saving chapter, I break down how you can use the tax code to your advantage. So if you haven't gotten a copy, please check it out, Rich AF at richaf.me. You can learn all about budgeting, saving, investing, taxes, debt pay down, everything. It's a one-stop shop, and you can get a hardcover ebook or audiobook copy. But there's also a bunch of resources that come with it. And so if you look on page 287, there is a QR code. And at that QR code, when you scan the book, or it'll be said out loud in the ebook, there's like my personal budgeting spreadsheet, like my recommendations, my recommendation for savings accounts, my resume, because I want you guys to see what a good resume looks like, a little AI tool that'll actually help you build your resume. There's a ton of free resources that come with this book. Please do not buy some scammer's workbook on Amazon, because I did not make that workbook. You don't need a workbook. All the resources are free when you purchase the book or borrow it from the library or get the audiobook or the ebook. Okay, let's see questions. Do you recommend consolidation loans for credit card debt, and where do you recommend I get one? Again, cover this in the debt section of my book, Rich AF. You can get a copy at richaf.me. But one thing I recommend when it comes to credit card debt is consolidating, because credit card interest rates are so damn high. The rates on a credit card are anywhere between 20 to 30% annual percentage rates. So your debt is growing very quickly there. However, what you can do is get something called a balance transfer card. And what a balance transfer card essentially does is you roll your credit card debt from one credit card to another credit card, and that credit card allows you to have no interest for 12 to 18 months. And if you can get that debt paid down in that time, you are going to be only paying money towards the principal, not the interest. And that is a great way if you know you can wipe your debt in 12 to 18 months. However, if you don't think that can happen, what I do recommend is getting something called a personal loan. You can go to a bank and you go basically to the bank and you're like, hey, I'd like to get a personal loan. They run your credit. Your credit score does have to be in a healthy place to get one. But if you can get a personal loan, those interest rates are anywhere between 7 to 15% versus a credit card, which can be 20 to 30%. So you're going to save a bunch of money on interest. And what they do is they give you the money, because you get the loan, you get the money, you take that money, you pay down your credit card debt, you have no credit card debt, you cut the credit card so you're not spending on it while you're paying it back, but you then pay back the personal loan, and because the interest rate is lower, there's going to be less interest accruing every month, and thus you'll pay your debt down faster while spending less on interest. But I do cover that in the debt section in chapter 6 of my book. Please check it out. If you barely make anything, should your plan to be make more or invest the little you make? Okay, so this is a great question, and I show this in the table of contents because I think, hold on, can you guys see that? Yeah, in the table of contents, it is really important to invest, but it's also really important to maximize your income. And the best advice my mentor ever gave me was you can only save and invest as much as you earn. It is so much easier to make more money than it is to cut back. And I say this because we have been fed this narrative in society that you can't have the latte, you can't have the avocado toast. If you do and you spend your money on those things, you're silly, you're frivolous, you're irresponsible. But that's just not true. It is so much easier to ask for a $5,000 raise than it is to cut out $5,000 of discretionary expenses from your life. You know, even after taxes, like with the raise, you have an extra 3.5, 4K in your pocket, but like cutting that much out of your life is so hard. You don't get to go to the nail salon. You don't have a Netflix subscription. You don't get to see your friends anymore for dinner. And I am not in the business of asking you to survive. I'm in the business of helping you thrive. So I always say, demand more from your job. Make sure you are doing the hard work, but also demand more because you deserve it. And that is so, so important because if you're not getting what you're worth at work, it's going to be really hard for you to get ahead. And oftentimes, unfortunately, companies are so, so stupid. It costs them so much to replace you, but they would rather do that than pay you more. And sometimes you need a job jump. I know people who have gotten 35% raises when job jumping from company to company, and loyalty does not pay. Forbes did a study. If you stay at the same job for 2 years or longer and you do not get a meaningful raise or promotion, you will make half as much over your entire lifetime. Half as much. Can you afford to make half as much? Because I can't. And, you know, I just think you don't have to. So always make sure you're maximizing that money. But if you even want to start with a little bit, you certainly can start investing with $5, $10, $15 because fractional shares exist now. And there are now ways for you to invest with just a little bit of pocket change. You don't need to be super rich to invest. That's how rich people got rich in the first place. Okay, let me, hold on. Oop, sorry about that, guys. I'm trying to get this just to hold normally. Okay, let's get another question. Aggressively pay debt or pay slowly and invest. Babes, we about to do a little math, okay? So here's the key. We're gonna follow something called the rule of 7. And I talk about this in my book, Rich AF. You can get a copy at richaf.me, or you can Google Rich AF. If you're on Instagram, you can literally just comment Rich AF in the chat and we'll send you a link to get a copy. And even if you can't afford to purchase a hardcover or an ebook or an audiobook, please just get it from your library. I think everybody needs to read this. So when it comes to, hold on one second. Why is this lagging? Okay, so when it comes to paying down your debt versus investing, we're gonna follow something called the rule of 7. And basically, any interest rate above 8%, so oftentimes credit card debt or high interest debt, or maybe even a private student loan at 15% or something, you wanna pay that down fast and furiously because that debt accrues very quickly. However, for low interest rate debt, anything 7% or lower, you can make the minimum payment across that and then just slow roll it while investing. Reason being, if you are investing in a diversified portfolio that has, exposure to a bunch of stuff, the S&P 500 over the past 40 years has returned roughly 8 to 10% annually. So you'll likely make more investing than you would save paying off your debt faster. Whereas the opposite is true when you have high interest rate debt. You likely won't be able to make enough investing to outweigh what you would save if you pay that debt down faster. So it just really depends on what your debt is, and use the rule of 7. But I cover it more in my book, and I do give a visual, so please check it out, richaf at richaf.me. Okay, somebody asked Avalanche or Snowballs, and people who are not, people who have been on their financial journey for a minute are like, why is she talking about snow? We are in the summer. Avalanche and Snowball method are 2 methods of paying down debt. And I have a very specific preference. The Snowball method is where you rank your debt from smallest to biggest balance, and you make the minimum payment across everything, and then any additional funds you put towards the smallest balance. It's great because it allows you to wipe out accounts quickly so you feel progress, you feel good about yourself, but it's not the smartest thing to do. The Avalanche method, on the other hand, you rank your debt from highest to lowest interest rate, make the minimum payment across everything, and then any additional debt pay down you put towards the highest interest rate debt. And the reason why this is so awesome is because you have math on your side. When you are making additional payments to the principal of your highest interest rate debt, you will pay your debt down in the fastest time frame while paying the least in interest. I am an Aries. I am incredibly impatient. I drink water quickly. So I don't want to have to spend any more money on fees. I don't want to wait a day extra. I want to do it fast and I want to do it right. So I always say Avalanche method is my preference. I talk about that in chapter 6. So let me show you guys. In chapter 6, I cover a bunch of different debt things, but I cover the Snowball method here and I visualize it for you. I cover the Avalanche method here. I visualize it for you. I also cover things like debt consolidation that I talked about earlier, credit counseling. I even have these fun little extras to help you get a sense of if there's anything else that you could be doing with your debt. But please check it out. Rich AF by Vivian Tu. You can Google it, or you can just go to richaf.me. You can get signed copies. You can get hardcover copies, ebooks, audiobooks. This book is a New York Times bestseller for a reason. Over 100,000 books have been sold already, and I really, truly think it's going to change your life. If you cannot afford to get a copy, please, please, please go borrow one from your local library. This book will be relevant in Australia, however, not this specific copy. This is the US edition. There's actually an international version. I do link that at richaf.me, but the international edition is going to make more sense for English-speaking countries outside of the US. Okay. Let me pull up some questions and see what folks have voted on. I have a 401k maxed to company match. Should I also get an IRA? Yes, that is the simple answer. Yes. An individual retirement account is exactly that, IRA, individual. It is not tied to your employer, and any money that you can be putting additionally, if you have the means to, for your retirement is going to be beneficial. Depending on how much you make, there will also be additional tax benefits. And I'm a big, big fan of having a 401k and an IRA. When I worked a W-2 job, I had both. But I do talk about that in chapter 5 of my investing section, Rich AF. So check it out, richaf.me. And if you actually are a higher earner, you could also look into a backdoor Roth IRA. How do I know which IRA company to choose? Well, I have an easy way for you to do that. So let me show you in my book. And please, guys, if you haven't already, snag a copy. It is filled with gems just like this. So at the beginning, I say, where do I invest? At a brokerage. You can either self-direct or you can get a Roboadvisor. You can get an IRA account at the vast majority of brokerages. Most of them offer them. But it'll depend on if you want to do it yourself, if you want to have a Roboadvisor help you, or if you really need a lot of handholding. Here's my comparison that I do in this book. If anything convinces you to get a copy, I hope it's this. In the investing chapter, I talk about investing like going to the nail salon or getting your nails done. So when you self-direct and you DIY, it's like painting your nails at home. Takes a lot longer, it might be a little messy, and it may come out looking a little jank, but it gets the job done and it's super, super cheap. There are no additional fees. That's like investing by yourself. The opposite end of that spectrum is you go to the salon, you sit in the chair for you sit in the chair, they do it in 60 minutes, it's quick, it feels good. It's a professional doing it, so it comes out looking perfect, but it's expensive. That is if you were to get a human financial advisor. I usually don't recommend those for most people. Self-directing, an option, but you got to kind of have a little bit of your wits about you. And then the option that makes a lot of sense for many people also is the middle. This is what I call the press-on method. You can get a Roboadvisor. A Roboadvisor is just technology that allows you to take a quick quiz about your money goals. So how much money do you make? How much do you currently have saved up? What your retirement is going to potentially look like? What's your family situation look like? Where do you want to live? And that's going to help determine the tax situation. But it's a bunch of stuff. And what is so cool is you are able to then get a diversified portfolio spat out to you, and it'll be perfectly cater to your risk tolerance, to when you're going to be retiring. So this is a great option if you want to have a custom portfolio, but don't necessarily want to pay a ton in fees. So maybe that'll dictate where you decide to open up that IRA. Okay. And people are now asking me like, Roboadvisor over target date retirement fund, Roboadvisor over VOO. And honestly, it really depends on you. If you are able to, navigate the world of target date retirement funds and index funds that you want to select, do it. That's a great option. But a Roboadvisor is just a lot easier for many people who don't necessarily have the time to dedicate to that. Okay. Somebody just asked a question on YouTube. What should I do with my employer's 401k if I was laid off? Should I open a separate 401k IRA to consolidate my accounts or leave it with Fidelity? Okay, so let's just clarify. A 401k and an IRA are two separate things. So there's no such thing as a 401k IRA, but a 401k is an employer-sponsored retirement plan. And an IRA is an individual retirement account. That's what IRA stands for. When you leave a company, you stop getting company benefits for whatever reason, if you were laid off, if you quit, whatever. Benefits included things like medical, dental, vision, but it also included things like access to your 401k. It also included things like your commuter benefits or WageWorks or whatever. Another benefit that most people don't know about is that when you have a 401k with your old employer, they are the ones paying those account fees. Once you leave, you have to pay those account fees, and that can eat into your gains. So what's actually really smart is anytime you leave a company, you leave your 401k there, don't do that, because you will forget about it. You will be charged additional fees. And frankly, if they switch providers or something happens, you may not be able to access it later. What I always say is roll your 401k over into an IRA, an individual retirement account. It can be an IRA you already have open, because a rollover is not the same as a contribution. Or you can open up a new IRA account if you don't currently have one. But that is going to be the easiest way to get your money and make sure it stays with you, the individual. And I would say if you guys want an easy way to do this, transparently, they are a partner, so no harm, no foul if you don't want to use them. I don't get additional money if you choose to use them. It's a free service, but it's called Capitalize. If you just search highcapitalize.com/richbff, they'll roll it over for you, and they make money because the IRA providers pay them on the back end. So I hope that helps. Hold on one second. Grace, can you add the URL on this one? It was pinned, something else was pinned.
Oh,
it wasn't
yeah.
right. Okay. Ooh, advice on an overspending partner. Let's talk tea. So someone was like, ooh, wait, who is that? Grace, can you come here really quick? I'm introducing a new character. Grace is my amazing COO. She runs everything. She is, she was hired to be an assistant, but ended up becoming a tour manager, brand manager. She is my videographer, my editor. She helps me with everything. Anything I do, Grace does, and we travel together a lot. So we've gotten very, very close. She hates me now that she's laughing so hard at this. But no, I'm very lucky. I have a right hand. She is the absolute best. Also just one of the smartest people I know. She's really talented, and I'm very lucky to have her in my life.
Thanks.
Let
me figure out the comment right now.
Dead. No, you pinned this. Okay. So yes, Grace is 10 out of 10. And quick side thing, when you are running a small business, y'all, you gotta fire fast, hire slow, because there have been instances where I've had people who worked for me and it was not a good fit. And it is so important that you spend the time and the effort to really, really make sure that it's the right person, because it took me a while to find Grace, but now I know I have her, and I can't imagine having anybody else. But it took a while to find her. But, when somebody's not right, it's okay to part ways amicably as soon as possible, because you don't want to spend any time, trying to teach someone something when it just isn't going to work. For everybody asking, yes, this live will be saved, but it'll be posted to YouTube. Transparently, I realized when I was posting this on these lives on Instagram, nobody was watching an hour-long video on Instagram. So I decided to move them over to YouTube, but you can find them there. And for everybody who is kind of joining late, please check out my book, Rich AF. You can find a copy at richaf.me. If you are on Instagram, you can literally just comment Rich AF in the chat and we will DM you a link to grab a copy. You can buy a hardcover, ebook, audiobook, whatever. And there will be resources associated. So you will get a copy of my resume. You'll get a copy of my budgeting template that I personally use. You'll get a copy of an exact script to ask for a raise. And there's a ton of resources with this. Also, again, I would rather you read this than not. So if you can't currently afford one, please go to your library, ask them to buy a copy, borrow a copy, go to your library, get it on the Libby app, listen to it, whatever. I just want you guys to get these resources. Yes, this book is at all of the different retailers for books. You can find it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, local indie bookshops, and there's signed copies at richaf.me. Right now on Amazon, I believe the hardcover's $20. I think the Kindle's $5.99. The audiobook, I'm not 100% sure, but somewhere in between those two numbers. So please snag a copy. And yes, it is available in Canada. Get the US edition versus the international edition, and then scan the QR code on page 287 to get the Canadian resources. Ooh, yes, somebody said chat about side hustles. It's brilliant in your book. Okay, thank you so much for reading it, one. But two, yes, like they mentioned, chapter 2, I talk a lot about maximizing your income at work, but also you want to potentially get a side hustle, because Side hustles are a great way to increase your immediate cash flow for the short term. What I always say when it comes to picking a side hustle is picking one that's very different from your day job. So if your day job is, oh, I work as a bartender or a waitress or in construction, I'm on my feet all day. Maybe at night you want to do something that's, you're sitting on your butt. So you can do data entry from your couch. If you are someone who works at a computer all day and sits at a desk, maybe your side hustle is walking on WAG. It's a little bit of exercise and you get to play with a puppy. So I think side hustling is really great if you need a short-term cash infusion, especially for a reason. Maybe it's to save up quickly for a down payment on a home. Maybe it's to save up for, a wedding coming up. I'm getting married in a couple weeks, as well as, buying a car or affording a thing that you want. So just think of side hustles as a short-term cash infusion. Let's see, I'm trying to find some good questions that a lot of people want answered. So I answered this one, I answered this one, that one. How do you suggest dividing finances with a partner? Okay, so sorry, I froze. How do you split finances with a partner? This is a very personal question. I'm gonna tell you how I do it, but you don't have to do it the way I do. But again, I talk about how to talk about money with your family and friends in this book, but little sneak peek. Hopefully my second book will focus a lot on relationships, kids, and planning for the future, estate planning, things like that. But when it comes to splitting finances with a partner, I don't believe in being equal because there's no such thing as a 50-50 partner. That's trash because some days you're 80-20 and other days you're 20-80. And if you are always expecting your partner to bring 50-50 to the table, there are some days it's not gonna work. Is the audio wonky? Somebody said? Okay, is this better? Okay, sorry. Basically, I just don't think that's ever going to work because you are going to have trials and tribulations in your life. There will be times where your job is easier and their job is easier, whatever, but you're gonna have to pick up slack. And that's the whole thing of being a partner versus having a roommate. The way my partner and I do it is we have a yours, mine, and ours system. And we have ours money for mortgage, utilities, basic groceries, things like that. Then there's my stuff. So I have money that I make that I keep in my bank account that he cannot touch. And it is for things like my lash extensions or getting dinner out with my girlfriends or something that I want to spend on. And he has his money that has, a purpose earmarked for when he wants to go golfing, when he wants to see his guy friends, when, he wants to spend and he doesn't have to clear it with me. We make big financial decisions together as a team, but it's okay to have your own money. Just make sure you've had the conversation about it. When I hear about couples who are like, oh yeah, I have a secret bank account, I'm like, maybe just talk to your partner. That might be easier than having a secret bank account. Your partner should want you to have your own money. And I say this for all of the women who are currently listening, you need to have your own money. I have gotten way too many DMs that are like, I have an abusive partner, I can't leave. What do I do? I can't afford to leave. And that's really sad because financial abuse is abuse and you should be able to leave a bad boss, leave a bad relationship, leave a bad anything because you have your own. So just make sure you please keep your own bank account. Don't put everything into one big pot. You can have an hours pot, but not only an hours pot. Somebody said less money, more happiness. Actually, that's completely false. So decades and decades ago, there was a study done that showed happiness deeply diverted up until $75,000, but then happiness plateaued as income kept going up. And that was like a really great study because it basically made the rest of us feel like, oh, well, like rich people are a little happier, but they're not like that much happier than us. No, there was a recent study that just debunked that and showed that there is no point at which financial abundance and happiness diverge. So like basically the more money you have, the happier you are. I don't think having the lime green Lambo, having the $1 billion makes you happy. I do think it helps provide you a life of stability. Let me tell you, rich is when I am able to take an Uber home at 11 p.m. at night and I don't feel worried about what's going to happen if I take the subway. Rich is being able to send my parents on an all expenses paid trip because I'm an only child and they are the best parents. Being rich is not buying the designer bag or having the designer shoes or even flexing for the gram. I think in my early 20s, I really thought that was what it was. And I wanted to be like my mentor for those reasons at the beginning. I watched her click-clack into the office with her Gucci shoes and fling her Chanel bag on the side. And I was like, oh, that's rich. I want to be rich like that. But real rich was when, she had a family member call her and they needed to get a surgery. And she just said, well, schedule it. Don't worry about the money. I got it. I got it like that. And to be able to tell your family that you've got it like that, that's richness. That's real rich. And I don't think that's necessarily something money can buy, but it's a feeling of stability. Okay, another question. Why do so many of you want to know what I'm putting on my skin for eczema? It's the Cocoa Kind. Hold on, can you guys see this? It's the Cocoa Kind Ceramide Body Oil Stick. I will say though, that is just like a basic product. I use prescription drugs for my eczema. I've been on topical steroids. I've been on tack ointment. I just got a new prescription called Opsilora. I'm trying everything. Like, your girl has skin issues and like, maybe there's like a filter on social media, but like my skin's like not the best. And I'm okay telling you guys that. So, what do I think about emergency funds? I talk about this in my book. Everybody needs to have an emergency fund. If you want just the quick and dirty and want to know exactly what to do, please grab a copy of Rich AF. You can find a copy at richaf.me or just Google Rich AF by Vivian Tu, or honestly just Rich AF. It'll be the first thing that pops up. You can get a copy on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, everywhere. And it is truly going to change your life. I believe that. Because I cover so many topics. If you have no idea what you're doing with your money, this book is going to help you get there. I cover how to ask for a raise at work, how to get a better job, how to budget in a way that doesn't make you hate your life, how to save your money more quickly and effectively, how to invest 101, exactly where, what accounts, what investments, what buttons to click. I do it all. And then the last chapter focuses on things that don't neatly fit into a box. So things like taxes, debt, building your money team, advisors, things like that, and also how to talk to your family about money. So I really do think this book is going to help you. But in terms of emergency funds, I'm a big fan. I think singletons should have 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved in a high yield savings account, and heads of household or parents or people who have people depending on them should have 6 to 12 months of living expenses set aside. I know that sounds a little high, audacious, can be a little overwhelming, but one of the easiest things you can do is actually go to your workplace portal. You probably logged into this once when you started the job to set it all up, but then never ever again. And then what you're gonna go do is, instead of having 100% of your paycheck go towards a checking account, you're gonna have it go to 2 things. So 95% can go towards that checking account, but 10% can go into a savings account. and that savings account will automatically be set aside. So month after month, you do it. That is going to grow very quickly, and it is really going to help. So I do think, please get an emergency fund. Please open up a high yield savings account. You earn a lot more interest than a regular savings account. Should you leave the emergency fund in the high yield savings account forever if we don't use it in the next 6 months or so? Yes, you should keep adding money to it as your circumstances change. Your emergency fund at 22 is going to look very different than your emergency fund when you're 40. Maybe you have a partner, maybe you have 2 kids, you have a pet, you have a home. It's going to look very different. So do not be shy about continuing to put money in there and reevaluating your emergency fund every couple years. Can you talk a little bit about the taxes for these accounts once the time comes, IRA versus 401k versus stock earnings? Yeah. So basically, I'll give the 3 examples. Traditional tax advantage retirement accounts. Again, I cover this in chapter 5 of Rich AF. If you want to just grab a copy, you can head to richaf.me. Traditional tax advantage accounts, you don't pay taxes today. You get a benefit today, but then you pay taxes when you take the money out. With a Roth variety, a Roth 401k, a Roth IRA, you do not get a tax benefit today. You pay taxes today, but when you take the money out, it's yours. With an individual brokerage account, just a standard investment account, you have to pay taxes on the front end and on the back end, which is why people always say when you start investing, try to maximize your tax advantaged accounts first, because you get a benefit and you get to keep more of your money. That said, if you've maxed out all of your tax advantaged accounts, an individual brokerage account is not a bad idea either. Okay. Ooh, for folks who are asking, you can get the book at richaf.me. You can Google richaf. If you go to richaf.me, there are signed copies, hardcover, ebook, audiobook editions. There's links to buy them at Amazon, Target, Barnes & Nobles, Walmart. On Amazon right now, I do know for a fact that they're running a discount, so it's actually on sale. But you can get the book wherever books are sold. And there should be about 15 or so signed copies left. What yield is good in your opinion? Well, I think what we need to talk more about is the risk-reward calculus. When you have a higher risk investment, there is a chance that you could lose more of your money, but there's also a chance that you could make a lot more. When yields are lower, so things like a high yield savings account or a certificate of deposit or a money market account, you're getting less, but you're much, almost 0% likely to lose all of your money. Then there's stuff in the middle. So, there's high grade bonds, high yield bonds, there's equities, which is like stocks and, ETFs and mutual funds. Basically, the more you could possibly make, the higher the risk. But the big linchpin word is possibly, because there are chances that you could lose that money. So I would just say have a diversified span of what those earnings and yields could be, because you want to have some stuff that is low risk, low return, a little bit more high risk, high return, and then a lot of stuff in the middle. I believe I have time for one more question, because I have about a minute or so left before I got to run. But I'm so sorry. One, yes, my books are sold at Target for who's asking, but somebody just texted in the chat, help, I just took a dump at my boyfriend's house, but the toilet won't flush. Babe, I can't help you there. I have no words. I don't know even what to tell you. Pray, flush again. I don't know. does your book answer all of these questions does your book exposing all these questions being answered? The book covers a lot of the answers for the things that I've been answering today, but it goes into detail and it explains what's going on. Somebody asked what my favorite chapter was. Probably chapter 5, because not only do I break down Investing 101, which I know is one of the most stressful topics, but also it breaks it down, like where do you invest, what type of account, and what investments. And then a couple pages later, I wouldn't say couple, like 50 pages later, I break down exactly what order you should be investing in, based on what type of job you have, how much money you make, and your tax situation, so you can get the most out of this chapter. It's not just about investing, it's about doing it smartly and making sure it helps you. If you are scared to invest, trust me, just read this book. It will help you do it, but also you shouldn't be, because if you are not investing, your money is literally losing value day after day. The cost of living is getting higher and higher and higher. If you do not invest your money, it's not keeping pace with the cost of living. So in 10 years, you'll have half as much, even though the number hasn't changed, or maybe even it's grown a little bit. And that's really scary. If you want to be able to afford retirement, you need to invest. Not you guys all giving advice on the plunger and the poop situation. Okay, so I'm gonna close out this live, but the book is available on Amazon, on Barnes & Nobles, Walmart, Target, in-store, everywhere. And you can get it at richaf.me. If you're on Instagram, you can actually just write in the chat richaf and we'll send you a link to get a copy. But it is currently on sale on Amazon for $20. The ebook I think is even cheaper than that, like $5.99. There's an audiobook version. There's even an international version for my international besties. But last but not least, I'd really like for you to read this book, even if you can't afford it. Please just get it from the library, read it, get it on the Libby app. But go to richaf.me or Google richaf and grab a copy, or get it from the library. I am so grateful that you've spent this time with me. Somebody did ask, can you submit questions ahead of time for the lives? What we can do is, if we make an event, Grace, would they be able to submit in advance? Or maybe they could submit via the newsletter? Okay, so if you Google enriched Substack, and so there's like a page for my weekly newsletter. If you sign up for it and comment, there is a Q&A portion that I answer questions every single week in the newsletter already. But if you want to submit there, you should be able to submit questions and I'll get them answered. I apologize, I certainly couldn't get to everybody. I only have an hour, but I'm really grateful that you guys spent the time with me. Please check out Rich AF, and as always, stay rich. All right.